This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men, here with the new 21 report. I'm talking to Elliot Hulse. Elliot, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
You spoke this year at the 21 Convention Patriarchs Edition, yes?
Mm-hmm.
What was the title of your talk?
State of the American Father. And my talk, rather than focusing on the father itself, was about looking at the context of the American father. So we had to look at women, we had to look at family, we had to look at community, we had to look at country, and we had to look at God the Father.
Mm-hmm. So a nice narrow subject.
You might say.
Yeah. So you led to God the Father, and you began with like the terrestrial aspects of fatherhood.
Right.
How did you tie those together for the men? Because not all men will necessarily agree with that or see it the same way.
Tying it together is as simple as looking at what surrounds us. And you can't have understanding of the man if you don't look at the woman, his helpmate. You can't have an understanding of the American father and his state without a family, without children. And so, of course, those are more terrestrial as per your language. Then it starts to rise up from me, we, to us. Now we're talking community, we're talking country, but when we really pull back and analyze who we are, what we're doing, and why we're here, as it relates specifically to the American father, we can't ignore Christendom. And so, as challenging as it may be for some people to accept that God the Father is our pattern and our way shower for life, I decided to bring in and preempt that by pointing out who the enemy is. And so there was a lot of talk leading up to our conversation regarding our atonement with our personal fathers and God the Father, with the 100 years of Satan's reign on this planet, mainly done through the arm of Marxist, communist ideology that has subverted our entire culture since the 1930s.
And did you show men how Marxism shows up in their homes and families? Was that the tie back?
Yeah, with absolutely every aspect of that. When we study the work of Antonio Gramsci and Mark Lucas, who are the founders of this diabolical technology, every single point of the fruit of their work had been the Frankfurt School. Every point of intention for the Frankfurt School, I was able to show graphically how it sliced through each one of those 5 aspects of our context. To de-Christianize the West was a clear indicator. It was absolutely indicated verbally. I mean,
by Gramsci, I think he said that.
Right. So there goes our relationship to the divine, God the Father, our pattern. The West was not easily toppled because the West was built with perhaps the most solid foundation, which is patriarchy. And we learn patriarchy. Patriarchy comes to us from Abraham, Moses, and so forth. I mean, that's the lineage. That's the pattern. That's how we got where we are. So coming back to a patriarchal tradition is the antidote to the chaos of Marxism, feminism, communism, and all those, like I say, demonic technologies that are seeking to destroy, like I said, the God the Father, but to destroy intersexual dynamics by bringing boys and girls together in school and treating them equally as if we're the same, but we're not. We've known this for eons, but I guess we're woke now since the 1950s, 60s, right? So destroying gender relations, creating offenses. When I say creating offenses, meaning pitting us against each other by creating oppressors and oppressed, like men and women, encouraging divorce, the breakdown of the family, the encouragement of the children to disregard and denigrate the words of their parents and tradition, and then to rather adopt the media's impression on them, the consolidated power of the public school system into them. Family, so men and women relations destroyed, the children are destroyed, teaching the children of sex and homosexuality at a very young age. Why do we have Gonzo teaching 4-year-olds in Muppet Baby cartoons that boys should be wearing dresses? This is not arbitrary, and it's not about love. It's completely about hate. It's about hating family. It's about hating our culture. It's about hating what makes us who we are. And that is the fundamental dichotomy, or how could I say, the yin-yang, the blending of the male and female. Destroying the community. How so? Dependence on the state. Destroying our culture and the country and love for the country. How so? By teaching through the public schools that we're supposed to hate America because it was stolen. How is it that Alexander the Great is so great for conquering when Europeans come to America and conquer? I wouldn't accept that. It was conquered, won, but not stolen. That's something that we're taught so that we can hate ourselves. They also had the intention of mass immigration. And we see, what's happening at the southern border today. Not for love, not for compassion for these people, but in order to subvert the culture by diluting and destroying a sense of national identity. So Satan has been pretty slick, and he's had the past 100 years to do all of this through the media, through the schools, through the culture. That's why this is a cultural battle. I often say, and it's difficult for people to understand sometimes, this is a spiritual battle. And it's very obvious that it's a spiritual battle if you just consider, the world wars were very physical. We were getting blown up. People were dying, bullets and bombs. We're not seeing that yet, but it's because they understood that they needed to subvert our minds, our hearts, our souls. And that's where the real battleground has been since the past 100 years or so.
Did you find that your message resonated with the men during the talk?
Not only did I find that it resonated, but it was synonymous with many of the other talks that were given. It was great to hear, as is always when I come to these events, the other men speak and be privy of, not just privy of some of the elements that I described in my talk, but to be experts. It was great to hear, I forget the name of the speaker, but he went very deep into the aspect of how socialism, Marxism, communism are technologies from hell that have been subverting and destroying our culture for the past 100 years.
Luden, the filmmaker Luden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trevor Lucas.
Luden, I think.
Luden, amazing man.
Yeah,
Had dinner
the
with
Kiwi.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to hear what he had to say about something that I just gleaned upon in that in-depth way shows that we're making progress. We're exposing the enemy. We can't take this back until we expose the enemy for what it is and to say no. That has been the biggest challenge. That has been where we've dropped the ball as men, is because we're too acceptant. We're too tolerant. I'm calling for intolerance for evil.
Do you find that the men agreed with that part of it? Did they resonate with the intolerance for evil?
Well, the men here do. Yes. And that's why we're making these videos, so maybe someone who hasn't heard these ideas, this could be an alarm clock. And we all know alarm clocks aren't fun to hear, but they wake you up.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that even here you're waking men up? Like, I hadn't considered that before.
Perhaps, yeah. I think we all come together as a light and we shine it on what needs to be exposed. And so that's why I'm proud to be a part of this convention. So
this is your third year speaking here at 21. How have you seen it grow and change over the past 3 years?
Well, I was invited in when that shift was happening from the great importance for young men to be aware of intersexual dynamics. I never denigrate how you would say pickup guys, right? I get it. I understand why that's important. Men should know that stuff, but it's just a very surface aspect of really what's going on here. And with the Patriarch edition being added to the event in 2019, when I first came and spoke, I have to say that that has been the catalyst for a maturation that has been unfolding here that I'm pleased to be a part of and happy to be contributing. If we don't figure marriage and family out, it's like an organism with degenerate cells, right? The building block. It's like making a building with crumbly rocks or bricks,
Yeah.
right? So we really have to solidify our homes, right? We all know that a tremendous amount of the dysfunction in this world extends from the broken family. And even if families aren't broken, they're degenerate families, because we see how men and women just can't get together any longer. We just can't figure it out. Women aren't women anymore, and men aren't men anymore. It's funny, I was thinking about this yesterday. One of my favorite shows in the 1980s was Married with Children, Al Bundy.
Yep.
And I watched that. I absorbed that. I loved that.
Yeah.
I cracked up about it. It was one of my favorite shows ever, and I remember watching reruns. And I couldn't help but to think that, whoa, I was totally out to lunch while I'm watching Al Bundy be the example of what we now have 40 years later, which is the downtrodden, beaten up, old guy living in his, thinking about his golden days, wife who doesn't respect him and spends all his money, and kids who are, the daughter was exactly what girls are today, right? And the boy was what you would call an incel. So it was like predictive programming from the 1980s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, The Simpsons as well. The whole ridiculous dad meme. Homer Simpson is the ultimate ridiculous dad. Bart is the troublemaker, but
Right.
Lisa's the smart one, the brains behind the whole operation,
Right.
like the daughter, right? Like that was part of my childhood growing up. The whole ridiculous.
Those two
dad
shows
thing.
were back to back.
They were, yeah.
They came on.
exactly.
Married
Yeah.
with Children, The Simpsons.
Yeah, and so, well, you and Colleen spoke at the 22 convention for women. Did you find that the women came up to you afterwards or engaged with you in a way that you didn't expect?
No. And like I said in our previous talk, I'm an optimist. I think that this is going to work. I think this is going to unfold in the way that it needs to. Will it be quick? Look, it took them 100 years to get here.
Oh, wow. That's a good point.
Right? It took us 100 years. Will it be quick in terms of the long march, just working on people little by little? I don't. But I think everything that we do plants a seed, because as Greg Adams most clearly exemplifies in his talk, the barbarians are at the door. I almost sound like him when I said that. The barbarians are at the door. The barbarians are at the door. We are living through what will be a very challenging time. We will see challenging times in life. And when shit hits the fan, reality exposes itself. Reality comes to the forefront. I think God used tribulations in order to wake us up so that we come back home to what's normal and natural for us. So when I say that I'm hopeful, that I'm optimistic, it means that I know that I'm speaking truth. I know that I'm speaking to the future, and I know that I'm not alone, and that there are those who are like a little ahead of the curve, I would think you could say. And the women at the 20, if you're a woman and you're coming to the 22 convention, you have to be ahead of the curve. Right. You have to be ahead of the curve, and there are just a few. There are not many yet, but everything starts with a seed.
So to the barbarians at the gate, barbarians at the door point, do you think how long will it take women to wake up to the fact, and men, everybody, to wake up to the fact that there are barbarians at the door? And do you think that realization will cause people to wake up more quickly than they would have if we did, for example, some sort of counter long march, right? So the long march proceeded because they were working in secret, and now with the barbarians at the gate, the door, that's not a secret anymore. Will people wake up more quickly as a result of that, or do you still think it'll take a while?
It's the only way we'll wake up. This is cyclical. This is a pattern. We've seen it happen time and time again. This is what the Bible affords us. Amongst many great gifts, the Bible affords us this idea that there's nothing new under the sun, says that Solomon. And we're just watching what has happened for 10,000 years, right? And so when I speak to the future and I speak to about the barbarians, and I talk about how we will repent and turn around and change, it's not, again, I say I'm hopeful, but I'm not hopeful. It's a fact. This is the right. This is the archetype of humanity. This is how we do it. We start out real well, but I mean, we start out well because we fucked up before. But we get to start again. We start again. It goes real well, and it doesn't take long before we forget. And then a generation or two passes, and so I think what has happened is that in America, that whole pattern was speeded up. It was sped up. I mean, America's a baby country. Yeah. But the rise and fall of empires, we're right on time in essence. So I'm convinced that a part of God's plan in his allowing tribulation, right? Because we do it to ourselves, allowing the challenges, allowing this fall to happen is sort of a cleansing process. It's a way to say, okay, you guys are out of control. And there are those that believe that at least a third of the population will be wiped off the planet between now and 2030. And there are those who have a plan to allow that to happen. You could blame, you could point, you could say whatever you want, but the bottom line is it's not the first time that's happened. And there's a good reason why it happens. And usually what happens after that happens, we become holy again. Women become women again. Men become men again. We put God first again. And we start living like what I call a traditional lifestyle.
You're, I'd say, dominant on many social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube. What do you get out of coming to 21 specifically that you can't get anywhere else, if anything?
Well, it's great to be around like-minded men, people who we can have these conversations with. It's great that Anthony puts on an event where I can stand on stage and look important and have a video to show for it. It forces me every year to bring my thoughts together and decide what's most important for me this year to share. It's been a positive thing personally in my life, but I also see it as a positive part of a positive masculine movement happening on the planet. I know it's not the only thing, but I happen to live 40 minutes away. I think Anthony's a cool dude, and I like the other speakers at the event. So to me, this is just obvious.
Do you enjoy preaching a Christian message about repentance and fatherhood to a community of men in person?
I enjoy preaching, right?
Yeah.
And if you've been around long enough, you've heard Elliot Hulse preach about practically everything. I've come to grips with, and I'm comfortable with the fact that that's what I do. I'm a speaker. I give my opinion. I say what I'm thinking. And from time to time, I change my mind. And so what I speak about today is a result of the experience I've had from yesterday. And so what you're going to get every single time you hear Elliot Hulse speak is his heart. It might sound strange, but I really don't have an agenda. I say I do, and I like to think I do, but really I'm here just sharing my heart. This is where I am. And I tend to think that my journey is man's journey. So if this is what I'm going through, there are probably other men that are going through it. If this is what I'm awakening to, there are probably other men awakening to it. I'm that self-centered. So it's really all about me.
What's it like for you having your wife here with you this year?
It's like normal, natural life. I like my wife. I prefer to have her around me. And every year I kind of get away, I guess you could say, by leaving her at home. But I would actually rather have her here with me. So it's just, that's just the way it is with me and my girl.
What do you find the reaction is from the men here getting to see that side of your life in person for the first time?
I think it's great because I've come to realize that one of the greatest gifts that I can offer to this world is an example. Talking is great. I love to talk. People want to hear me talk, but am I walking the walk, right? Can you see the fruits of my words in my life? Integrity is key. So I'm proud. I'm proud of my wife. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of my life. And for me to show it, it's less about bragging and more about showing, demonstrating that this is possible, this is great, and I hope you can have it too.
Congruency.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Elliot. You've made a huge contribution to 21 and to me over the years, so thanks for being with me today.
You got it, Will.
This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men, here with the New 21 Report and Elliot Hulse. Thanks so much.